So I'm sure a lot of folks want my opinion on this. I know Frank Hill wants my opinion on this, seeing as though he sent me, I think the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh on Blu-ray. I believe, no, I know he did. I know he did. Let me correct myself. I'm tired. I know he sent me. Yep, he did. Right here. He sent me the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. And again, I know he and everybody else that follows me wants my opinion on this. And everybody's been talking about it too. 3C Films has talked about it. John Campion's show has talked about it. I'm sure as heck knowing that Black Nerd Comedy, Andre Meadows is going to touch upon it. I know Angry Joe might touch upon it. But yeah, apparently I guess later this year, because according to the articles that they were sharing in these videos, one of the articles said that the filming lasted over 10 days. So you know that this is not going to be a big budget deal, due to the fact that it was filmed in a limited amount of time of less than a week and a half. Now maybe there's going to be more production put into it and all that, but this does look like it's a middle of the road, independent, budget film of the horror variety. You heard me right, of the horror variety, because apparently we're going to get ourselves a Winnie the Pooh horror film called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. You heard that right. The title of the movie is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And the one question everybody has had is, how is that possible? How could somebody make Winnie the Pooh into a horror film? How could Disney allow it? Well, here's the thing. Disney doesn't outright own the, IP. Well, I'll put it this way. Disney outright doesn't own the intellectual property, anymore. They don't. They don't outright own the IP of Winnie the Pooh anymore. So what that means now is that anybody, including yours truly, could make a Winnie the Pooh movie just like that without a problem. No issues. Now, are there a few catches here and there? Absolutely. There are certain characters that are still under the regime of certain studios, like Tigger. He's still kind of under the regime of Disney. Kanga and Roo are still under the regime of Disney. Owl, Rabbit, you name it, they're still kind of under the regime of Disney. But Winnie the Pooh, the three initial characters anyway, of this franchise, Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, and Christopher Robin, are not. They are not under, the regime, I should say, of Disney anymore. They are now public domain. And what is public domain? Well, everybody has talked about it since this news has come out, since people, like I said, are curious of how this is possible. Public domain basically means that when a company, whether it's Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, MGM, Amazon, like I said, Warner Brothers Discovery, I should put it that way, in all these places, big studios, middle of the road studios, up and coming studios. What public domain is that when any of these studios lose the rights or the current licensing on a property and on a particular IP comes up on a certain day or a certain year, then that IP goes into public domain. Especially if that IP is a classic tale of a character that originally you did not create. And Winnie the Pooh, Piglet, and Christopher Robin are one of those intellectual properties that Disney did not create. They only basically got the license for the property to make as their own for a certain amount of time, which I'm assuming they said was 70 years, which is kind of surprising. So they've had the Winnie the Pooh IP under the belt since about 1952, and they didn't really do anything with it until about what, the late 60s to mid 70s, and that was it. So, and then they started to get the ball rolling after that. But still, yeah, they had it for 70 years, and that is kind of like the limit with IPs being licensed and under the regime of certain studios. They have almost a centuries long expiration date on them. Like after nearly a century or close to a century, those IPs will become public domain unless the studio shields out more money to keep those IPs under their roof. A good case scenario is Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse is on the verge of going public domain, and what that means is even though he could still be looked at as the mascot of Disney, even after that, anybody, and I mean anybody, could do what they want with Mickey Mouse. They can. If they want to do a Mickey Mouse horror film, they could do a Mickey Mouse horror film. If they want to do a satire and you have somebody in a makeshift Mickey costume that's identical to what you see in the parks, but not really, and Mickey's just sitting there and, just shooting in an unauthorized, let's say, video biography or documentary of how bad Disney got since Walt died, and he would love to do this to the people at Disney for ruining the legacy. People could do that. They could do that. Honestly, they can. They can do that. If Universal wanted to do a Mickey Mouse movie, they could do it. And that's a fact. That is an absolute fact. If Universal, I'm just checking the time here, wanted to do a Mickey Mouse film, they could do it. Once the IP goes to public domain, unless Disney does something. Warner Brothers could do something with Mickey, if Disney doesn't retain the IP. Anybody can do anything they want with the Mickey Mouse property after starting in 2024, if Disney doesn't say, nope, we're keeping him. He's not going anywhere. The same is said here with Winnie the Pooh. Disney could still do a lot of Winnie the Pooh, and that's fine. They could do their own versions and all that, that's fine. But right now, until they step up and say, hey, we want Winnie the Pooh back, anybody can do what they want with the Winnie the Pooh IPs of Winnie, Piglet, and Christopher Robin, and anybody else that might fall all under that category. They can do what they want. Heck, if they wanted to, in a sense, they could actually upload maybe some Winnie the Pooh cartoons of Disney and then probably put in as a disclaimer, public domain, and nothing can probably happen to them. Well, not saying that something won't happen, but still, that is potentially, an idea that would flow through people's minds. But yeah, this is indeed happening. And that tells me one thing though, speaking of Disney, I think it's going to get their attention no matter how small this horror film is. Budget-wise, it's going to get their attention, and it's going to get them to stand up and say, we're taking this property back right now. And I think that's what they're going to do. But let me know what your thoughts are on it.